All right, here we are. Unit 9. Inheritance. Almost there. Keep it up. Keep the momentum. You're doing great. Try to pick up a few things here while you go through these questions. You were not expected to get all of these right. Hopefully you made an educated guess. And once you saw the answer, you walked through it and figured it out. If not, that's why this video is here. So in general, when you are dealing with inheritance, you are trying to figure out how the object type is related to how it's instantiated and how methods are run as a result, and how the methods, including constructors, are associated with each other, with subclasses and superclasses, and the keyword super in regards to constructor and another method. So all of that together there's a fair amount to understand and learn, and these multiple choice questions will help you learn that topic. So some of these I'm going to skip over because it's more of a vocab question. So this is instantiated as poodle. These are good things to read out loud, so you know what type it is, and then what how it's instantiated. So I'll let you look at those questions, this one and that one. The other thing that you might want to recognize in terms of a vocab word is when you define a method like the constructor with a string t, that's a single, what's called a parameter. And then when you actually call the constructor, as in line 1 down here, you are passing an argument. They call that an argument. That's the argument. The definition has a parameter. So you'll see those vocab words referenced. So similar question here, so I'll just skip over those. So you have 3 different types here on this one, and you have all our string parameters, and they each call the superclass. That's what this question was all about, and you're just again translating it. And different things down there, so read through those and make sure that you got it. So let's move on to how methods are called with substrings and overwritten methods when you override a method in a subclass. And this one is so which of the following conditions will compile with run without error? And well, all ducks, chickens, and roosters either have a sing method or an inherited method. So bird has a sing method here, so does duck, which extends a bird, so it overrides it. So a duck's going to quack, it's not going to cheep. But a chicken does not have a sing method, so it would use the bird method, sing, bird version, because it extends it. Rooster has its own, so it overrides the chickens, which, well, actually it overrides the bird one with cock-a-doodle-doo. So they all would work, in other words. Moving along. Number 5, a similar type of questions. Since henchman does not have does not extend extends evil person, it would not print ha 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 ha. So the 2 and 3 are the only ones who are going to print moo ha 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 ha. Okay. Since henchman inherits it from the evil person. Moving along. So the only one that works is 2 because subclass, even though it's named like it might, only extends parent class. It would need to extend subclass in order for it to work. Okay? So it's 2 only. So if you are looking at which ones compile without an error, or which one actually creates this statement when run, 1 to 10, you need 2 parameters. You need a low and a high, and it has to use it needs to be instantiated as a close range object with 1 as the first variable and 10 as the second one. A few of these are close. This one would not, only 1 parameter. This uses the range constructor, which is not defined with 2 parameters, if you look up top. And this one's backwards, and so on. So the only one that works is C. I guess a similar type of questions here, just scanning this. You notice that the hat has 1 parameter, but ball cap has 2. Which one will make it work with size L and you're looking at the toString method and the call to the superstrings toString method with Denver, and the only one that works is A. Other ones are close, and you can see why they don't work. Number 9, good question. So if you followed through all of these calls to superclass and subclasses, great. You may have got this one wrong because it's kind of out there, but it is a good question, and actually it makes some sense when you get through it. So here, see if I can walk you through so it makes sense. So the first thing to know is it's trying to print PQRTS, and I'm going to just go to the correct answer here. D is a grandchild object which it needs to be, because in order for a lot of these letters to be printed S and T, it's got to be a grandchild object. So that's the first thing. It needs to be instantiated as a grandchild object. And the only one that is like that is E, but because it calls second instead of first, it wouldn't work. So it's a relatively quick question if you understand that the only way to get at S and T is the grandchild class, to have it be instantiated as a grandchild object. Similar question here with multi-tool. The only thing that's different is this is why you have a situation like this. Is if you can create an array list of a superclass type, you can put all subclass types in that array list. So that's kind of cool. The problem with this one is, the reason it causes error at line 8 is tool 1 is, while it uses a deluxe multi-tool constructor, it's still a multi-tool method or type. Tool 1 is a multi-tool type. Tool 2 is not. Tool 2 is a deluxe multi-tool. So it can't call get compass because it's not defined in multi-tool, and if it was defined, it would actually call the deluxe multi-tool version because it's overwritten. But because it's not defined at all, you can't call that method with tool 1. Moving along, number 11. All these things are okay, but T1 is a thing, okay? Is a thing, even uses a things constructor. And an ARR of 0 is an array reference to a more thing array. See, more thing array uses the more thing constructor, so you can't set them the same because they are different. They use different constructors, different things. Number 12, moving right along. So this one, a lot of stuff you may have not seen before. So I have a static method within a class. It's getting passed in as a parameter of type refrigerator. And line 8 is trouble because A1 is an appliance object. Again, it's the type appliance, but it's instantiated as a refrigerator, but the type is still a refrigerator or an appliance, and that method requires a refrigerator type. So line 8 causes the trouble. All right, SEC could not call output because it is not defined in the first class. Similar question as above. Would be fine if it was there, and then because it's instantiated as a second object, if it would actually call the second output method because it is used as the subclass's constructor, but it's not defined in the first class, so that's the problem. 14. It's kind of a similar type of question. Teach is a person object, even though it uses the teacher constructor. So teacher info is not defined for a person type object. Some ways around that and some advanced things, but so it's asking, it's meant to display this, but because method Y exists in the subclass, that version would be called because it uses the B class constructor. Again, thing is an A class object. Okay, I keep repeating myself, but it kind of takes a while to sink in. thing is an A class object, but it uses the B class constructor, so any method defined in both will use the subclass's constructor. So that means it would call sub y for method y, or it would print sub y. Almost there. Stay with me. Here we go. I guess a similar type of question. How would you make this work? Well, number one, a reminder that when you just print an object, it automatically calls the toString method. So you are trying to print out this right here, number of wheels, 4, max speed, fast, and if you follow through the conditional here, right there, it would print out this. D would print out that particular situation. And yeah, you can't do that, even though that's the right parameter set to make that happen. 17. So this is the dot equals method, which is a pretty common method to override from what's called the object class. Hope you saw a little bit about that. And you're determining what are the rules to make two objects of this type equal, okay? And the way this one works is you just follow through these. Is you take var1, if that equals the same value as var1 in the other object, that's part of the equals rule. The other part of the equals rule is that var1 equals the length of the string in var2, okay, of its own, and the length of var2 is the same as the other length of var2. And the only one that has those conditions is if you check to see if S3 and S4 were equal. That would call true. So answer C. Number 18, finally, a similar question. Which one of these would print true? And because this 2, because if you did T1 equals T2, first of all, you're calling it correctly. You got to call it there, and it would print out 1 times 60 plus 10, or 0 times 60 plus 70. 70 equals 70, and so 2 is the only one that would make that happen. So as always, reach out to me if you have any questions. See you soon.